roommates or have some company. So I apologize if you can hear any of the background noise. I'm gonna go ahead and get to my slide. So prior, when I first did this type of activity, some of my original beliefs were, growing up, I didn't see myself as a strong reader. I developed a deeper interest in reading later in my undergraduate experience, but my earlier beliefs on literacy were shaped by, my limited confidence that I had and, the engagement that I had with reading, which wasn't too much. During my elementary years and even middle school years, really, when I think about the concept of like reading books or breaking passages down, it was typical experience. So my influential literacy experiences for me was my research, the research that I've done at the undergraduate level. That was something for me that was helped me with building my appreciation for literature, and then also the art of comprehending a text. That is where I would say were some of my best experiences with literacy. My early views, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, it kind of was a typical experience, I would say. Like, I read passages, I got tested on, how can I say certain, how to pronounce certain words. But I feel like I had an average experience. Nothing that stood out to me in my earlier years pertaining to literacy instruction. Um, yeah, my math teachers, they didn't, you know, key vocabulary, I think, didn't really, like, I don't know, it never, their type of instruction didn't stick out to me. Not saying it wasn't effective, it just didn't stick out to me personally. Um, with literacy now, even prior to your class, one thing I can say about my strengths pertaining to this area is that I have, strong analytical thinking that supports comprehension. I have an increased ability to learn from complex texts. And then my experiences now motivate me to become a well-rounded educator. My key learning from this course, three strategies that really I was not familiar with in its entirety, was reciprocal teaching, question answer relationship, I do, we do, you do. These three strategies, to me, they're significant, and I think they are impactful for education and the process of students' education, because it can encourage students to own their learning. It can encourage autonomy within the classroom. It allows me to shift my role of I don't want to say like a lead commander to a facilitator within the classroom. And then I think this also supports active participation with the content that's provided within the class. So I really like those three specific strategies, and they stood out to me the most. And then so my shifts in understanding when it comes to when it comes to literacy, I understand now the importance of literacy, not just within reading and English basically, but also within history, social studies, science, math. When I think of being a literate math learner or being a literate science learner, I think about having an understanding of certain terminology that is typically utilized within those subjects. And we talked about that really within the first half of the class. I think about also being able to break down certain texts given to students. I think about, being able to um, detail to me as a teacher, what did you learn? If this, to the student, asking the student what they learned and they be able to tell me what they learned, and be able to detail different concepts that they read. So that's what I think literacy, especially amongst different subjects, can look like, such as math and science. you know this class and the art of literacy instruction truly did shift, also my, I mentioned, it shifted my perspective some, or it enlightened me some. But also, I now value literacy more than I ever have valued literacy. I recognize the importance, like I not exactly touched on, but I recognize the importance of it, especially in subjects such as math as well as science. And then I feel better after this class. I feel better with integrating literacy into my content areas, because prior to this class, I didn't really know how to effectively, I would say, integrate it. I knew that giving students passages, offering them handouts that they had to basically break down. I knew that I would have had to, embed that into my, lesson plans. However, though, the way that I know how to do it now, With embedding literacy instruction, it definitely strengthens my approach to education, strengthens my skill set as a teacher as well. And so, for my application to future teaching, I'm going to integrate these strategies on a daily basis, I would say, or at least on my weekly basis. When I think of QAR, that strategy, I'm thinking of small groups. I'm thinking of working one on one with my students. When I think of I do, we do, you do, this is the typical day within my classroom. This is a typical, this is what typically how class is going to go. I'm going to model what we're going to be doing. We're going to do it together. And then I'm going to allow my students to partake in their educational process or educational journey with the material in an autonomous manner. And I think that's very effective. I think it allows students to, build that closer, I would say have a closer, I don't want to say a closer, connection with the material is the proper phrasing, but be able to have a more, I would say, I don't know, significant experience potentially than opposed to me just telling them the answers or telling them, hey, remember this, regurgitate this on the test. I feel like it allows them to be close with the material given. And so that's how I'm gonna personally apply some of these strategies within my classroom. Um, and for my closing reflection, uh, I understand now how foundational literacy is across any discipline. My journey reflects, I would say, with literacy, it reflects the growth mindset that I've, had, and my open mindset when it comes to learning more about these different concepts that exist within education. Because my approach into this class, being candid with you, Dr. Shabazz, was more of like being a sponge, soaking up as much as I possibly could soak up, pertaining to like knowledge regarding how to be an effective teacher and what to do to be an effective teacher. And so now, really, I'm committed to fostering strong literacy skills in my future students and exploring how I can utilize these different strategies and more strategies that are already out there to help my students be literate, but to also help them with being critical thinkers as well. And that is my presentation. Thank you so much, Dr. Shabazz. I appreciate you as a professor. I appreciate the time and the energy that you put into our class. Thank you, thank you, thank you.